Not too long ago, I wouldn't be caught dead next to one of these things, let alone riding one. Mini bikes? I thought they were for teenagers, circus bears, or people too scared to ride a real motorcycle. I'm now ashamed to say it, but I was such a motorcycling snob, a two-wheeled elitist. But hubris has a way of catching up with you. Sometimes all it takes is a motorcycle the size of a carry-on suitcase to crack your ego wide open. Today, I confess to riding the Honda Grom, and something strange is starting to happen. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Now, in this channel, I've mostly tested bikes that could do a little bit of everything, and also bikes that could only really do one thing, but did that one thing extremely well. Today's bike, it's been purpose built for something very specific. The city, traffic, tight spaces. Basically, this might very well be the urban jungle's secret weapon. This is the 2025 Honda Grom. First off, some important numbers we need to know. 765mm seat height, 103 kilograms wet, 9.7 horsepower, 10.5 Newton meters, 5.7 liter tank, 12-inch front and rear wheels, and $17,000 on the road, which is as cheap as a motorcycle is going to get. By the way, a big thank you to Bunsu Singapore for the loan of the bike. Now, a bike like this that could do the usual, take it around a car park, zigzag through cones, do tight U-turns, and it would ace all of that. No surprises there at all. Just sitting on the Grom, I already know it'll make light work of tight, cramped spaces. So I'm not going to focus on what it was clearly built to do. I want to see what happens when you take this little bike out of its comfort zone. So first stop, Mount Faber. Normally this is where small bikes start huffing and puffing. But the Grom is actually holding its own better than I expected. I'm alternating between third and fourth. I'm pushing it a little, but the bike is soaking up the pressure and not struggling one bit. It's climbing steadily and rapid enough. And honestly, I'm more than a little impressed. Speaking of gearing, the bike only has 5 speeds, but that's more than enough to handle all of its 10 horsepower. However, first gear does feel really low, so low that I'm basically upshifting as soon as the bike gets moving. Now for the next incline test, the Shears Bridge. The first ascent is the easier, more gentle approach from Marina Bay Sands. Right now I'm in the right lane, but no problems at all keeping pace with traffic. This ride up is easy for the Grom. Next up, we'll see how it handles the steeper, nastier section from Ophir Road. And if this bike is going to struggle uphill, this is where it'll show. Sure, Mount Faber is steep, but with a 40 km/h speed limit, there's no pressure to go fast. The Shears Bridge is a whole different beast. It's just 2 lanes wide, and you're kind of expected to be gunning it to 90 by the time you reach the top. I'm riding solo today, but ideally I'd be testing this with a pillion, just to see how quickly a 9.7 horsepower motorcycle can haul 140 kilograms up to the height of a 10-story building. It's not quick, but it's quick enough to keep up with traffic, and that's what's important. Just don't expect it to hit anywhere near the 90 km/h speed limit on the climb. Now, as I spend more time in traffic, I'm realizing something very unique about the bike's city riding manners. The slower traffic gets, the better this bike feels. Because heavy traffic basically turns roads into a slalom course. And this bike really does feel like it lives for slaloms and slow chicanes. And I actually feel safer in traffic. The heavier the congestion, the better. Because the gridlock chaos really plays with the Grom's strengths. On a big bike, a traffic jam feels like punishment. On this, it feels like a playground. There is yet another wonderful quality about the Honda Grom: zero engine heat. And I'm not exaggerating, this thing runs cooler than most laptops. It's a very old school air-cooled low compression engine, no radiators, no fans, no drum. The engine on the Grom can be traced all the way back to the legendary Honda Super Cub, the best-selling motor vehicle in history. A horizontal 124cc single air-cooled engine, ultra simple, impossibly reliable, but now with fuel injection. This engine is basically the cockroach of the motorcycle world, built to survive a nuclear holocaust. And one thing I struggled to make sense of was how, despite how small the bike looks, the ergonomics are surprisingly normal. I can flat-foot it easily, but it does not feel like a miniature bike. I'm nowhere near elbowing my knees. The 765mm seat height, although it's lower than average, is honestly speaking not especially low. Believe it or not, the seat height on the Grom is actually taller than Honda's own 500cc Rebel. That bike has a seat height of 690mm. So this would explain why the Grom seems to be rideable and even comfortable for riders well over 1.8 meters tall. And here's another surprise. The Grom is actually decent with a passenger. The seat is wide and the bike is so low that getting on is easy. I took a passenger out for a spin and I didn't hear any complaints, which from a passenger is basically the same as a 5-star rating. Oh yes, you can easily and frequently hit the rev limiter on this thing and still be under the speed limit. It's really rare where you get to use all of a bike's power on the street without worrying about breaking the law and losing your license. So, after a day out on this bike, what do I actually think?
This isn't a very revvy bike. It wasn't built for peak power. It makes its power down low and it's built for economy and reliability. Right now with a 765mm seat height and a wet weight just over 100 kilograms, the bike basically turns car parks into a go-kart track. So when you're talking about steep ramps or tight corners, instead of feeling intimidated, you're more likely to be trying to aim for the apex or even trying to overtake the rider in front of you around the outside.
I especially like the fact that the Grom is light enough that you're unlikely to drop it. But even if you do, you're not going to shed any tears. Because one, this bike is built to take abuse, and two, parts are cheap.
Lane splitting and weaving through traffic is also pretty effortless as well, especially when cars are at a standstill. It really feels like there's no turn too tight that this bike can't handle. And I think this is what makes the Grom so much fun. You're not worrying about weight, height, or too much power. You just sat on the bike, low to the ground, flicking through traffic and zipping around corners, and simply enjoying how absurdly fun this bike is to throw around.
And when it comes to dollars and cents, the tiny Grom is a giant killer. Running and maintenance costs are laughable. Fuel economy is about 50 km per liter, and when it's time for an oil change, you just need one bottle. Yes, one bottle.
But all that fun on the Grom has a limit, and it's a speed limit. Once you hit expressway speeds, the Grom does tend to lose a little bit of steam. Basically, it stops sprinting and starts jogging. That's it, the bike goes from 0 to 60 pretty rapidly. And by 0 to 60, I'm talking kmh, not mph. Acceleration is generally more than fast enough to keep up with traffic. From 70 to 100, that journey can take an eternity. Because at around 80 kmh, the engine is spinning at about 5,500 RPM. And because maximum power is at 7,250 RPM, there's not a lot of power in reserve if you want to accelerate quickly. So if you're the kind of rider who likes to overtake quickly and often, this bike might actually leave you feeling a bit vulnerable on fast roads.
As long as you're not planning to live on the extreme right lane of the expressway, the Honda Grom might just be the most fun you can have under 60 kmh. That's it from me. Catch you in the next video.